usual meditation to start the session, um, I wanted to describe a brief practice that you can do daily that will help you create good karma and abandon negative karma. And that is, as soon as you wake up in the morning, you don't even have to get out of bed to do this practice, so there's no excuse for mistake. Is you think, is you generate your motivation for the day. Yeah, so this practice that you can do when you're still lying in bed is to generate your motivation for the day. And so you begin by thinking the most important thing that I do today is not hurt anybody. Not the most important thing I do today is go to work or tell this person off or make sure my kids are fed. You know, the most important thing, whatever else you do today, is not to hurt somebody, either physically with our body, verbally with our speech, or mentally by thinking negative thoughts. Okay, so we make that determination first thing in the morning, and that really helps us to be more mindful of not hurting others. Then we also make a second determination in the morning, which is to benefit others as much as we can. So, there's many big and small ways to benefit others. And, when you do your dharma practice, if you have the motivation that may this be a benefit to others, even though you're changing your own mind, or you're changing your mind, it benefits other living beings. And so you can change your mind also about going to work, instead of going to work to get money, so stuff. You go to work to serve your clients and serve your customers. You make a strong aspiration before you go to work to be a cheerful person in your workplace so that it makes it easy for all your colleagues and co-workers to have a nice experience at work. Okay? So there's many ways to benefit certain things because we're always interacting with them. Another way of benefiting certain things, some of you may not like this, is when cars are merging, you let the other car go first. Yeah, you abandon road rage. What do you think of that? How many of you have road rage? Oh, only 3 people. I see. How many of you are not telling the truth? Okay, so road rage is extremely dangerous. Very, very dangerous. So best, in those situations, let somebody else go first. It's no sweat off your back. We don't have to be arrogant. I was first. Okay, so you have your second important thing in the morning, benefit others as much as you can. And then third important thing is to keep the bodhicitta, the mind aspiring for full awakening, in your heart all day long, as much as you possibly can, and to continually cultivate it. So, making these 3 resolves, or, 3 determinations or motivations, first thing in the morning is setting your intention. So that's creating karma. And when you set an intention, and then the more you live by that intention, then the more verbal and physical karma we create during the day as well. And the fewer problems we create. So that's all something that will benefit us, as well as help the people around us. Okay? So, if you think you're going to forget to do those, what are the three first ones? Not to harm, second, to benefit as much as we can, third, to cultivate a retreat. Okay? And so if you're afraid you won't remember to do that when you wake up in the morning, then write a little post-it and put it on your alarm clock. Or write it out in big letters and put it on the mirror in the bathroom. So when you're brushing your teeth, you look and you're like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to be doing instead of looking at myself in the mirror. Or put it on your refrigerator door. Or write out the motivation and put it on the steering wheel of your car. Or on your bag before you walk out the door. But do something to help you remember to do this. And if you do it, it's very, very helpful every day. And also, after we die and we wake up in the next life, we'll have the habit of first thing generating a good motivation. So in the next life, certainly we want to have a good motivation, don't we? So we want to create this habit in our mind right now, because we're very much creatures of habit. We do things repeatedly. So if you want to have a good death and you want to have a good life, then in the future, then you have to create these kind of good mental habits, healthy mental habits. Okay? So let's begin with our recitations, and then we'll go into some meditation, and then have the talk. So let's remember when we do the recitations, take a moment and visualize in the space in front of you the Buddha with the body of the broken light, surrounded by all the other Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and they're all looking at you with total acceptance and compassion. And they're surrounded by all the sentient beings. Think of them all in human form. And as we recite the recitations, think that we are leading all these sentient beings in generating those thoughts. If there's people that you don't like, or politicians that you don't trust, or somebody that's harmed you, make sure to put those people in your visualization as well. And imagine them going to the future as refuge. I take refuge until I awaken in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I choose, by engaging in generosity, and the other virgin practices, may I have Buddhahood in order to benefit all saints. I take refuge until I awaken in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I created, by engaging in generosity, and the other foraging practices. May I take Buddha wood in order to benefit all citizens. I take refuge and thrive awaken in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create, by engaging in generosity, and the other origin practices, may I attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all citizens. May all thinking beings have happiness and its causes. May all sentient beings be free of suffering and its causes. May all sentient beings not be separated from sorrowless bliss. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free of bias, attachment. May I prostrate with my body's speech and mind, and present vows of every type of offering, actual and mentally transformed. I confess all my destructive actions accumulated since beginning this time, and I rejoice in the virtues of all holy and ordinary beings. These remain as the cycle of existence ends, and turn the wheel of Dharma for centuries. I dedicate all the virtues of myself and others to the great Lord. And then remember, as we say the Buddhist mantra, imagine light coming from all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas into us and into all the living beings around us, purifying our negative karma, our afflictions, and bringing the realizations of the past. Ayata Then do a body scan, release tension in your body, and after that, give yourself the instructions for the breathing meditation, and go right into the breathing meditation. Remembering to keep your focus, you take your abdomen, your nostrils, observing the breath, observing how the breath is changing, it's impermanent, and how the breath connects with the rest of the universe. You get distracted, bring yourself home to the breath. So that's some time in silence to do this. the right heart that's generating motivation. And we've probably been born in samsara, in cyclic existence, innumerable times under the force of ignorance, anger, and attachment, and our polluted karma. We're seeing that within cyclic existence, always going around and around from one resort to the next, seeing that there's no lasting happiness, then let's generate the intention to be free of cyclic existence and to attain liberation, nirvana. But then nirvana is only our own liberated state. And what about everybody else, all the other living beings who have been kind to us, who want happiness and not suffering, just like us? It wouldn't be right to leave them in cyclic existence and just work for our own nirvana. So it's important to expand our motivation and aim to attain the full awakening of the Buddha, so that we'll have the wisdom, compassion, power, and skillful means to be able to best benefit other simple beings and lead them to full awakening as well. So even though this motivation is very expansive, very lofty, and full awakening is far away right now, still, let's hold that in our heart as our real spiritual goal and aspiration. Because going towards that is the most beneficial thing we can do with our life. The best way to make our life most meaningful. So generate that bodhicitta, especially as the intention for listening to the Dharma right now. So this session, I'd like to go briefly through the 10 non-virtues that the Buddha spoke of, so that we'll know what kind of actions to avoid doing, and the 10 virtues, so that we'll know what kind of actions we should try and do. So again, these are actions that the Buddha saw that when sentient beings do them, the long-term karmic result is misery. Okay, for the 10 acts of non-virtue. And also, almost everybody, when they do these 10, has a negative motivation. A self-centered motivation of anger, or greed, attachment, or confusion, not knowing what to practice and what to abandon. So when I'm going through these 10, you may recognize that you've done some or all of them. If it's any comfort, I've done all of them. Some of them before I became a nun. And so, don't feel like you're the only person who's done this. I think that due to our three poisonous attitudes of ignorance, anger, and attachment, that is very easy for us to have done or thought about doing all of them. So, the 10 are, there's 3 physical ones, 4 verbal ones, and 3 mental ones. So the 3 physical ones are killing, so taking the life of any sentient being. So of course, not deliberately killing beings, and not deliberately killing insects or animals. So that means not going to seafood restaurants, choosing the live seafood that you want to eat, and asking them to put it in the boiling water for you. Just imagine that being you. They say that if the animal is already dead and you eat it, that it's not the action of killing. So they say that eating meat in of itself isn't the action of killing. Although asking for an animal to be killed for you, knowing it's been killed for you, then this is for asking for killing it yourself. In any of those conditions, then it is the action of killing. That doesn't mean that eating meat is carnal free. I mean, just think about it. Would you offer your body to somebody else to eat for lunch? Would you? No. So why do we expect other living beings to offer their bodies to us to eat for lunch? Really? So it's possible to be healthy and be vegetarian. Being Buddhist does not require that you be vegetarian. But I think if you can be, it's really good because that many lives are saved. I became a vegetarian actually before I became a Buddhist. But it was for a Buddhist reason, even though I didn't know anything about Buddhism. Because it kind of hit me one day when I was eating some sausage that this was someone else's body. You know, into somebody's body. I thought, I don't want to do that anymore. So that was over 40 years ago. I'm still alive, still healthy. You're not going to die being a vegetarian. You learn how to eat in a healthy manner. Although it's not required, like I said, but if you can eat, it's good. Then the second one is stealing. And that means taking something that hasn't been freely offered to us. So that doesn't mean that you have to put on a mask and break into somebody's house in the middle of the night. It also means not paying taxes and fees that you're supposed to pay, taking things from your workplace that are meant for the company you work for and not for individual use. of using those things for yourself, like borrowing things and not returning them. The third one, physical one, is unwise and unkind sexual behavior. So this principally means if you're in a relationship, you go with somebody who isn't. Or even if you're single, you go with somebody who is in a relationship. This really tears apart families. And I can't tell you how many people have come to tell me that when they were children, they knew that one of their parents was in an outside relationship. So what happens when your kids find out? Not such a good example for your kids, is it? And also, I think in this day and age, having unprotected sex when there's the chance of sexually transmitted diseases, that would also be included under what unwise and unkind sexual behavior. As we're using people just for our own physical delight without caring about them emotionally or caring about the effect that having sex with them might have on them emotionally. So prostitution, just hooking up with somebody for a casual affair, not realizing they're getting attached to it. These kinds of things. So those are the three physical ones that we do with our body. I would include also pornography in there. Pornography is not as serious as actually having sex, but it sure pollutes your mind. And can be very damaging to relationships. And damaging to the people who become the porn stars, and especially in the cases of child pornography, which is quite rampant and really violent. Okay, then the four speech ones. First one is lying, so saying what we know to be untrue, for personal gain. If somebody, for example, at the Abbey, we have wild animals on our property, deer, for example. And if the hunter comes up and says, "Where are the deer? I want to go kill one," then we don't say, "Well, I can't tell a lie, there's the deer over there." It's like, why? So you just don't say anything, you change the topic. You don't, in cases where somebody wants to know the truth, is asking you a question, and if you tell the truth, you know that another living being is going to be directly harmed by it, then that's something else. But that doesn't mean that if you did something nasty and other people are going to be harmed by learning about it, that it's okay to lie. Yeah, it's telling white lies, it's also telling big lies, like Bill Clinton did. Do you remember that scandal? He said, "I didn't have sex with that woman." He was lying. It was a big lie. It made so many problems in the country for years. It wasted taxpayer money, for so much money, because they did impeachment proceedings on him and all sorts of stuff. So the best thing is don't do anything that you wouldn't want other people knowing you did. Yeah. if it's a non-virtuous action. If you don't want if your parents aren't too keen on you going to Dharma class because they're afraid that you're going to ordain, you don't stop going to Dharma class because of that. Yeah. On the other hand, you don't have to lie to your parents and tell them you were somewhere else either. You can just say, I was out with my friends, because you have friends at the Dharma class. It's true enough. What? When you go out to have dinner with your friends, you just say, I'm going out with my friends, don't you? You don't say, I'm going out with my friends to that restaurant that's on the corner of this street and that street. You don't give them all the details when you're going out for dinner. Why do you have to give them all the details when you go out for dinner? You know what I mean? Okay. And the second one we do by speech is creating disharmony. And so that means talking behind other people's backs. Saying to this person said nasty things about you. And creating disharmony between the two people. Or that kind of thing. We briefly mentioned it yesterday, also in workplaces. Scapegoating somebody and ganging up on them by everybody in the workplace talking badly about them. Okay, so preventing people who are getting along from continuing to get along, interfering in their relationship, or preventing people who aren't getting along from reconciling. Then the third one is harsh speech, which we talked about yesterday: insulting, blaming, criticizing, ridiculing, making fun of, insulting, screaming at, like that. And then the fourth verbal one is idle talk, talking about all sorts of things that really aren't important, that take up a whole lot of time. And we do this one a lot. We talk about the soap operas, we talk about the movies, we talk about the sports teams, we talk about sales, we talk about all sorts of gossip that people are doing in the community. It takes too much time. We talk about food. Oh my goodness. Yeah, we talk about food so much. You go out to a restaurant, you spend a half an hour talking about what you're going to order. Okay, so those are the 4 verbal ones. Then 3 mental ones. The first one is coveting things that belong to others. So we do this when we go to the shopping mall. We walk along, oh, beautiful thing, I want that. That's really nice, I want that one too. Okay? The mind that just gets filled with coveting other people's possessions. The second mental one is ill will or malice. Thinking about how to get even. Somebody harmed us, so we think about how we can get even. We even can do this in a meditation session. Single-pointedly, perfect meditation position. And the mind is thinking, ooh, my colleague at work did something nasty. I want to get even. And you could, proceed to think about how you're going to get even. And then you hear ding at the end of the meditation session. It's like, oh. Have you ever had that happen to you? Where you spent nearly a whole meditation session being angry at somebody. not even realizing that you've been distracted, and planning how you're going to get even. So that's malice. And then wrong views means not understanding what is virtuous and what is non-virtuous. Getting those two completely mixed up. So, for example, thinking animal sacrifice is good. If I sacrifice animals, my ancestors will be pleased, or the worldly gods will be pleased. That's killing. So things like this, where we rationalize, justify our negative actions, that becomes wrong views. Okay, so those are the 10 that we want to avoid. Yeah. They are most heavy if we do them, with a certain object, having a negative intention. We do the action and we complete the action and feel very glad that we did it. If as soon as we did the action we have regret, then the karma isn't as strong. If our motivation is weak, the karma isn't as strong. Okay. But we should avoid creating either strong or weak karma. It doesn't matter. Okay, so then, those are the 10 non-virtuous ones. The 10 virtuous ones are just abandoning those 10 non-virtuous ones. Okay? So there's the opportunity to kill, but you don't. There's the opportunity to lie, and you think, no, I'm going to tell the truth. You have the urge to speak harshly to someone, and you say, that's negative karma, I'm not going to speak harshly. I'm going to wait until I calm down and then discuss the incident with the other person. Okay? So just abandoning those 10 itself is a virtuous action. So this is why it's very beneficial to keep precepts. Yeah? I know in the Theravada tradition you recite the precepts every day. I don't know if everybody necessarily remembers when they recite the precepts that it means they need to keep them. In our tradition, there's a formal ceremony where we take the precepts from a spiritual mentor, and then we have them and keep them. So, with the precepts, the 5 lay precepts to abandon killing, stealing, unwise and unkind sexual behavior, lying, and taking intoxicants. The first 4 are included in the 10 non-virtues to abandon those. The reason intoxicants is included in the 5 precepts is that when you get intoxicated, then you don't think clearly and you wind up breaking all the other ones. Okay? And intoxication also, it's not good. A lot of people get killed in car accidents due to drinking and driving. And I do prison work, and I would say 99% of the people I work with were intoxicated at the time they did their crime, which led them to a prison sentence, as well as to creating destructive karma for future lives. So good to avoid intoxicants. So the advantage of having precepts is if you have the precepts, then every moment that you're not breaking them, every moment that you're not killing or stealing or having unwise sex, unkind sexual behavior, lying, or taking the consequence, you're creating virtuous karma. So that's by the power of the intention that you have when you take the precept, saying, I'm not going to do this. Yeah. So then, every time you're not doing it, it's a virtuous action. So two people may be sitting here in the room, and one has the precept not to kill, the other one doesn't have the precept not to kill. But neither person is killing at this moment. So the person who doesn't have the precept is not accumulating the good karma of not killing. But the person who does have the precept to not kill is accumulating good karma just by sitting here in this room, because they're not killing, and that intention is still very powerful in their mind. Okay? So just abandoning the 10 non-virtues is itself virtuous, whether you have precepts or not. Having precepts enables you to create virtue all, constant. And then doing the opposite of the 10 actions also is a virtuous action. Okay? So instead of killing, protecting life. Yeah? So for example, you see little insects drowning in a bucket of water, you take them out. Or there's an animal that's about to be killed, and you rescue it. One time I went to my teacher's Dharma center in Delhi, and there was a chicken walking around the meditation hall. And I said, why is there a chicken here? And they said, oh, our teacher saw somebody about to kill this chicken and bought the chicken from the person and saved its life, so he put it here at the Dharma Center. Yeah, we had to toilet train the chicken. Otherwise, in the meditation hall, not so nice. I don't know if they ever toilet trained the chicken. I got the idea they put it outside. Anyway, instead of stealing, protecting other people's property, returning things that we borrow, being generous with our material possessions. Instead of unwise and unkind sexual behavior, using sexuality wisely and kindly, or remaining celibate. Instead of lying, telling the truth. Instead of using our speech to create disharmony, using it to help people reconcile. Instead of harsh speech, really making an attempt to speak kindly and tell people what they do well, encourage people to do positive actions. And instead of I will talk, speaking about things that are worth talking about, and speaking not too much, speaking an appropriate amount, and at an appropriate time. Then instead of coveting, having thoughts of generosity, instead of planning our revenge with malice, thinking kind thoughts of others, like meditating on the 4 immeasurables, those 4 lines that are on a prayer sheet. And instead of wrong views, learning the Buddha's teachings, thinking about them, and coming to the right conclusions because we understand them perfectly. Okay, so all of those are also virtuous actions. So there's many, many ways to create virtue. And since virtuous actions, good ethical conduct, that's the principal cause of having a human life, in the future we should really exert ourselves in ethical conduct. Not keeping ethical conduct, just behaving any old way, without caring about whether our actions are wholesome or not, then we create karma that leads us to have a very unfortunate rebirth. So maybe someone gets born as one of the flies. They're here listening to Dharma teachings, but they can't understand. Okay, so when we speak about the results of our karma, we can talk about 3 results, but one of the results has 2 parts, so we can also say it's 4 results. So each karma that is complete, in other words, we identified the object, we had a non-virtuous intention, we did the action, we completed the action and rejoiced about it. Okay? So any action with those 4 points complete has the power to propel us into a rebirth. So if it's a non-virtuous action, we could be born in the hell realms as a hungry ghost or as an animal. If it's a virtuous action, we could be reborn as a human being or in one of the God realms. Actually, it's better to be born as a human being than in a God realm because we have more opportunity to practice the Dharma as a human being. In the God realm, they have so much sense pleasure delights in the desire realm, God realm, that they're distracted. You're always experiencing pleasure, so you never think of creating virtue, because you're always distracted, going after pleasure. As human beings, we have enough misery or suffering in our lives to remind us that we need to create virtue. So we have enough happiness that gives us the freedom to listen and practice the Dharma and create virtue, but we have enough suffering that reminds us of our need to practice so that we don't get too distracted by just, having everything we want and having everything we wonderful. So it's good to dedicate for a precious human life, or to dedicate to be born in Pure Land, such as Sravasti and Amitabha's Pure Land, because there we can have all the good conditions to practice in Dharma. But being born in Amitabha's Pure Land isn't just a matter of saying Namo Amitabha, because you can have a little recorder that says Namo Amitabha more times than you'll ever say it, but the recorder doesn't get born into Pure Land. And reciting Namo Amitabha without a virtuous mind it does not become something virtuous. So it's like, I gotta recite Namo Amitabha. Okay, Namo Amitabha, Namo Amitabha, Namo Amitabha. That's not going to get you to the Pure Land. Okay? So we have to keep good ethical conduct, we have to generate bodhicitta, we have to contemplate the teachings on wisdom, you have to generate some renunciation of psychic existence. It's not just saying I'm wrong. Okay. So that's one of the results is in our rebirth. Then the second result is manifest even if we're later again born as a human being in terms of what experiences we have as a human being. So this is the one that has two branches. One is in terms of our experience, the other is in terms of our habits. So in terms of our experience, if we criticize others, then we will be criticized. If we lie to others, others will lie to us. And also in future lives, people won't believe our speech when we do tell the truth. If we tell the truth, then in future lives, people will believe us and people will be truthful to us. So for both the positive and the negative actions, they will bring a result in terms of what we experience in our life. So this morning we had a very nice breakfast. Did you ever wonder why you had a nice breakfast? Or did you just say, oh, breakfast? Why do we have breakfast? And there's some very unfortunate people, like in Aleppo, Syria, where they're getting bombed and where there's no food, who don't have breakfast this morning. This is due to karma. When we're miserly, if we steal, we create the cause not to have the resources that we need to stay alive, or even the resources that we enjoy. We had breakfast this morning due to being generous in previous times. By being generous, we create the cause to receive the requisites for life. Food, clothing, shelter, and medicine. If we're stingy, we don't create the cause to receive requisites. And in future times, even when we're born as humans, we will lack what we need. Okay? Another result that comes even when we're born human is in terms of our habitual actions. So, those of you who are parents, I think you know that your kids come in with karma already. They come in with certain personalities and habits, don't they? Yeah. How many of you are parents? Yeah. Your kids, from the time they were born, did they have certain habits, certain personalities? Some babies cried a lot, others didn't. Some children, when they were very young, were very kind to animals, others were mean. Yeah. You see these habits kind of arise even when they're very young. So these are karmic effects of actions they did in previous times. These effects being their habitual behavior. Okay? So this is one of the karmic results that we really have to be careful about. Because if we create good habits in this life that so that we have good habits in next life, that's really to our benefit. But if we create bad habits in this life, then next lifetime, even as young children, we'll have bad habits. And it will take us much more energy in our Dharma practice to overcome those bad habits. Okay? So the habitual effect is something very, very powerful that we need to be attentive to. Then the last result is being born in a certain kind of place, with a certain climate or certain physical things. So, for example, being born in a place where the ground has a lot of thorns in it and a lot of spikes and sharp things, that's the result of harsh speech. Okay? Being born in a place where there's drought and the crops don't grow well, that's a result of stealing. Being born in a place like here, where you have so many fruits and so on, that's the benefit of protecting others' possessions and not stealing, abandoning stealing. Okay? So, being born in an earthquake zone is a result of karma. Yeah. Or being born in an area that, where you're prone to tsunamis or prone to wildfires. So you'll see kind of every place on this earth has some kind of natural disaster that can happen. So these come about also due to our karma. Okay, so when we meditate on karma, we can meditate on the 4 principles that we went over yesterday of karma, that virtue always produces happiness, non-virtue suffering, that even a small negative action can produce a big result. If you don't create the cause, you don't experience the result. And fourth, that our karma, the seeds of our actions, doesn't get lost and will definitely ripen unless we impede it. Okay? So you can meditate on those, going through them, and this is called analytic meditation. You're thinking about a teaching that you heard and making examples from your life, thinking about it using reason and logic, and that gives you a much more in-depth understanding of the topic. Yeah. When you just listen to the teaching, you get some understanding, but it doesn't go in really deep. If you do thinking and meditation, really going into these topics and analyzing, examining them carefully, making examples from your life, then the Dharma teachings really affect you in a much deeper way. And that's important. That's what we want, isn't it? Because otherwise, especially with the teaching on karma, we hear lots of teachings, but we don't live like we believe those teachings. So we may hear teachings, for example, on the 10 non-virtues and the 10 virtues, like I just described. But when you're in a situation where you can get something for yourself out of being non-virtuous, all of a sudden our understanding of the meditation on karma is out the window. And we just do whatever we can in a greedy way to get what we want. Or even if a friend says, with a kind intention, you know, oh, we better not do that. You say, be quiet. We'll get more profit if we do that. Huh? So we may hear lots of teachings on karma, but live our life as if we don't believe them. So this is why doing meditation on the 10 destructive actions and the 10 constructive actions is very important, so that we really understand what they are and we really understand the results. And so for each of the 10 constructive or destructive actions, to think about the result of it in terms of our own experience, and then ask ourselves, do I want to experience that result? So let's say we notice that we have a tendency to use property that belongs to our employers for ourselves. We take home paper from the office. We use office phones to make personal calls so that we don't have to pay the long distance charge, but the office pays it, even though the calls are personal. We clock in at 8 o'clock, then go out to breakfast, then come back and work. Okay, so we're getting paid for time that we didn't work. So then you think about, okay, if I do that, and I'm doing it consciously, I'm rejoicing that I'm doing it, what are the results going to be for me in my future life? I'm stealing. Okay, so rebirth in a lower realm. Even I'm born as a human being, maybe I'm born in an impoverished country or somewhere with a medicine. It's difficult to get medicine if you're sick. Also, even if I'm born human, because I was involved in stealing, I'll be born poor. Not just the country being poor, that's the environmental result. Yeah, but the result that is in accordance with the experience, what we made somebody else experience. We stole, so we will be reborn poor. Other people won't share their things with us. And then also we'll have the habit of just taking other people's stuff and not even seeing that there's anything wrong with it. So that's very dangerous, because then we create more negative. So then you think, if I keep acting this way, this is the kind of result I'll experience. And actually, I don't want that. Yeah? So if I don't want that result, I better not create the cause for it. Yeah? Instead of stealing, I need to abandon stealing. I need to protect others' property. I need to be generous. Yeah? And then you start practicing those actions. So if you meditate on all this and really examine it well, it will have an effect in how you live your life. If you just listen to the teaching, it may or may not have an effect, depending on how much you take it to heart. Okay? So, there's different kinds of meditation. When we were doing the breathing meditation, we did that in order to learn to concentrate, to stabilize the mind and calm it. When we're doing these analytic meditations, we're doing it to develop understanding, so that we really understand what the Buddha taught. We understand it correctly so that we can put it into practice. Okay. So we have a little bit of time for a few questions. Anybody have questions? Where's the voting line?
Can you repeat meditate and karma? The fourth one is seek of action will not get lost unless you complete them. I didn't get it.
Hold the mic.
Robert, can you repeat the meditate on karma? Why we meditate on karma? There are four actions, four reasons, and one of them is seek of action will not get lost unless we complete them. Three, I didn't get it. Okay.
The first three were the core principles of karma that we talked yesterday. That happiness comes from virtue, unhappiness comes from non-virtue. That's the first one. Second one is a small action can bring a big karmic result. Third one is if you don't create the cause, you don't experience the result. And then the fourth one was that the karmic seed will definitely ripen unless you do. There's one book that I put together. It's called Guided Meditations on the Stages of the Path. And in this book, it has many meditation outlines on these topics. Yeah? And so it's very helpful to have the outline with these points in it, because it helps you learn how to do the analytic meditations. And also that book has a CD in it with me reading the meditations. So you can just plug it in your CD player. It also will tell you how to download it from the web if you don't have a CD player. And then you can play, you can listen to me guiding the meditations, and you can think about the topics during that. So I put the book together because so many people were saying, well, you taught and I didn't take notes, so I don't know the outline. So, there's the book with the outline. Other questions?
Let's say we are having some chicken or cows, because the chicken has eggs. So if we are taking their dairy products, are we considered stealing things that belong to them? Morning, Reverend. So I have one question. So let's say there are some animals like cows and eggs. Some cows and chicken who produce dairy milk, something like the milk or the egg. Are we, when we as a human being, we collect dairy products like eggs, are we considered as eating things that belonging to them?
Okay. So if the chickens are, if the boy and girl chickens are together so that the eggs could be fertilized, then that could be killing because those eggs have the potential to, become a chicken. If the boy and girl chickens are separate, the female chickens automatically lay eggs. Those are not living beings. Okay? If you're drinking milk or cheese or things like that, that doesn't involve killing. That's okay.
Sorry. Then there's another question. So, let's say like the bees, bees are pollinating, they are making honey, right? So human beings who collect the honey, just eating honey from the bees as well.
You know, I thought about that. Because I like honey. I thought about that. Is it stealing or not stealing? I think, you know, the people that I know that are beekeepers, the bees are still alive after that. So it's not like we're starving them by taking their honey. Yeah. So I think it's kind of okay.
But the bees produce the honey with the young one.
Yeah.
So
But
you are actually taking the food of the young one.
but beekeepers, you know, they make sure the young bees have enough to eat. So I think the way they raise the bees, I think it may be a situation of overproduction. Yeah, because the beekeepers certainly don't want the bees the little bees, the young ones, the worker bees, to die out.
What about bird's nest?
Bird's nest, that's what,
The birds is,
You know, Chinese like to eat bird's nest.
yeah, where the birds eat and then they throw up.
People harvest the bird's nest, but actually the nest is supposed to for the young one.
Well, you'll have to see if living beings are starving because of that or not. I don't know enough about the production of birds' nests to comment on that. Yeah. You have to
So
investigate.
we are thinking whether harvesting bird's nest is a wholesome or not.
That's what I said. I can't answer because I don't know enough about harvesting birds' nests and its production. So you have to investigate if it means that beings are getting killed or that other beings are starving because of that. I don't know the answer to those questions, so you have to investigate. Okay? In America, we don't eat birds' nests, so I don't know much about it. Okay. One more question?
One more question.
So two questions from the group related to animals. One person asked if it's okay to scold animals. When you scold and shout at animals, do you create the same negative karma? No, scold.
scoring.
Story. I'm sorry, I'm not understanding the word.
When you use harsh speech.
Oh, scold! Yes. Okay.
Is the karmic result, is that the same? And also when you kill animals, what's the degree of the karmic effect?
Okay. As far as scolding animals, dogs definitely know that you're scolding them. Okay? I mean, they feel hurt and they slunk away. If your dog is doing something naughty, and the only way to teach your dog is to scold them, then you have to, it's kind of like with a child, with a very young child. If you say, oh, my sweet child, don't go play in the middle of the street, the kid isn't going to listen to you. You have to scold the child, but not with anger. So the same way, with the dog, you may have to scold it, but you try not to be angry. In terms of killing the animal, I already spoke of that. You know, I said it's complete with those 4 branches. So you have to remember the 4 branches. If you don't remember, listen to the talk again and take it. Otherwise, you make me do all sorts of extra work because you don't listen. Is that fair? I'm gonna go on strike. That's not fair. Okay? So, let's dedicate our merit now. I hope you remember something from the talk so you have some merit to dedicate. But you didn't sleep the whole way through. Actually, I want to compliment all you people for spending your weekend coming to a meditation retreat. You know, because there's many people who chose to go to the movies or lie on the beach or do something else this weekend, but you chose to come and learn about the Buddha's teachings and to have a weekend where you're putting your mind in virtue. So I really have to compliment you for that. Good choice.